Hi everybody, welcome to my talk on AI-assisted monologues. My name is George Loetter. I currently teach at Kansai Gaida University, and whether you're watching this live at the conference or later online, I do hope you find something useful in this talk. So how will it be structured today? First, I'll just give you some quick motivation behind why I do this activity and where the idea came from. Then we'll go straight into it, and I'll show you the whole sequence of how AI-assisted monologues look in the classroom. After that, I'll give you more detail. So if you would like to use this method, how can you train students to do it correctly? And that will give you more details that you need to know to implement it correctly. Then I'll briefly talk about how to use the same concept in classrooms that perhaps have no technology or are low on technology, which is how I actually started doing this a few years ago before the whole AI boom. So it can also work very well even without AI, although the talk is titled AI Assisted Monologues because AI has really changed the game and makes this work even better. And then there will be a short closing where I'll just give a quick review and a bonus tip. Just please note, any pictures you see of this presentation I got from PNG Wing. I guess that's tip number one. If you're looking for some good free pictures to add to your own PowerPoints and presentations, I recommend PNG Wing. All right. Okay, the motivation behind monologues. Why monologues? I first got this idea from this book by Bar Schickman called How to Improve Your Foreign Language Immediately. So in this book, he refers to monologues as language islands. So basically, when students are trying to use a foreign language, it can feel like drowning in the ocean, trying to swim and keep up with the flow of conversation. But he recommends that students take certain topics that they want to know how to talk about well and create a monologue and practice it a lot. And so they can fluently talk about certain topics that they want to talk about. And then when they are in the flow of conversation, they try to guide the conversation towards this topic, so towards their island. So it gives you a chance to find an island, and then you can comfortably stand, you can talk, you're not drowning anymore until you dive in and you swim on off to the next island. So of course, the more monologues you make, the more islands you have, the more dry land there is to stand on, and eventually you become better and more proficient at the language. So that's how he sees monologues. He refers to them as these type of islands, and this is probably where I first got the idea, or at least started to think, how can I take the concept of monologues and use it as an actual teaching methodology and add it to the classroom? All right. And also why? Why is it good? It sounds good, of course, students being able to talk about anything that is important to them. It's good because there are certain problems we can identify in the ESL classroom that can be solved by using monologues. So, example, poor quality input. Especially if you are really attached to the traditional TEFL concept of students speaking like 70% of the time, 80% of the time, and the teacher being more of a guide. The problem there is, with most levels, students are practicing to speak all the time, but everybody else, all the input they get, or most of the input they get, is poor quality input. It's incorrect. They're listening to other students speaking all the time, making mistakes. To learn a language, you really need a lot of good quality input. So most of our classroom time, if you're following this type of traditional approach, actually involves students listening to mistakes. All right. The next thing is a lot of the language that is taught is out of context. Context here means situational. So even though the vocab is perhaps put into the context of a sentence or a paragraph, it's still a mishmash of different things that are piled into each unit that is generally taught. It's not totally relevant in the context of the student being able to use it in their real life, talking extensively about something that they need to talk about. All right, so a lot of the language we do are in the classroom involves just example sentences and is not truly in context. All right, so the next thing, forced output. Okay, so students are speaking, they're making mistakes, it's out of context, but even though they're at lower levels, traditionally in a classroom setting, they need to talk. So we are forcing them to talk before they are ready. Generally, real language learners in the real world, uh, become quite proficient, at least like at a intermediate level, being able to understand reading and listening, and speaking before they can comfortably speak themselves. So we get students in the classroom to speak way before they're ready, almost like trying to ride a bicycle while you're building it. It's not the most effective, but we have to do that. That's what's expected. That's what happens in the classroom environment. Students need to say something regardless of their level. So how do we overcome that problem? They have to speak. And at the same time, when they do speak, it provides poor quality input for others. So monologues can help with that. And then there is a lack of real repetition. So doing vocabulary games or like grammar games every now and again, I guess, is a form of repetition, but there's a lack of really going back to topics in depth, in an in-depth way, and getting students to talk about it again and again. Because there are constraints. We need to move through a syllabus. Most teachers have some kind of a syllabus or a textbook or something to follow. It goes relatively quickly. We don't usually have time to go back and talk about the same topic again and again and again. So there is a lack of really repeating things. So also language learners out in the real world emphasize repetition, coming across the same words and concepts in different contexts again and again and again. And also they try to accelerate this through artificial means, you could say, such as through spaced repetition systems. So in the classroom, how can we get more real repetition? That's one of the problems that monologues can solve. And then these ones are in a different color because monologues themselves contain certain problems. For example, if students are making these perfect monologues, which should be very accurate, if you've ever worked with students before in a writing class or something, you know that that takes a long time. All right, so we don't want the class to become a writing class where they're sitting, taking an hour to write out a perfect monologue. So we have limited time. So these AI-assisted monologues can also solve the problem of not having enough time. Another problem that comes up is the teacher burden, I will call it. And again, if students are making monologues and you have doesn't even have to be a large class. It takes a long time for a teacher to check every sentence to make sure the meaning that was intended by the student is correct, especially with lower levels, and the grammar is correct. And editing is not something you can just do like in a few seconds if you're not used to it, especially, and particularly with when students are even more than 8, 10, 15, classes of 20. It's pretty much impossible to have 30 students write out a perfect monologue and the teacher checks every single one to make sure that what they will be practicing is correct, and this has to be correct. This is not just trying to build fluency and talking and making his mistakes and not worrying about it. We want these monologues to be correct. Students must know that when they practice them, what they're saying is perfect. They can rely on it. They can remember it, they can repeat it, and there's no mistakes there. And other students know when they're listening, it's quite accurate. So it's not realistic that a teacher can check every single one perfectly, but by using this method, you can. All right, so let's see how it works. AI-assisted monologues will help to solve all of these problems in the classroom. Okay, to do this, students are going to need a notebook and a pen, and of course a device that has ChatGPT installed, logged in with the internet, and ready to go. Of course, you can use other AI models, but I'm just going to refer to ChatGPT while doing this. Step 1. Okay, students are going to get the topic or the question for the day. For example, a topic could be the new semester. A question could be, what are your plans and goals for this semester? And then they're going to, in the next few steps, make a monologue that is at least 1 minute long. A rough guide for that is 100 words or 8 longer sentences. That's about what students need to talk for a minute. Step 2, students are going to enter this prompt into ChatGPT. Translate what I type into natural spoken English, and this is going to produce much better results than any translator. Step 3, students are going to type what they want to say in the L1. Okay, so for this part, this should be fast and fluid. Everybody can do this, doesn't matter the topic or the question. We all know what we want to say about a topic in our native language, so you don't want them to try think carefully like this is an English speech for class. You want them to think, how would I answer this question if I was talking to a friend? What do I personally want to naturally say about this topic? So they just flow, don't think too much, they just write. So they're going to be typing in their native language, whatever their answer is. Then step 4, they will hit enter and get the translation from ChatGPT, which is going to be very natural and accurate. ChatGPT, or AI should I say, does this very well. And they are going to write down the translation into their notebooks, and this will be their monologue. Okay, so you're going to have very few questions or very little confusion about meaning or intended meaning, and if there is anything to check or clear up, it's going to be very fast, much faster than if you were using a translation app or if the students had no help at all and were just writing. Okay, so this is a very fast way just to get something to say very quickly that is accurate and personal. Step 5. Now you give students about 10 minutes just to practice saying their monologue without reading it. So they're going to be speaking out loud to themselves. They're also going to be timing themselves to make sure it is at least a minute. Okay, so you do not expect perfection at this point at all. This should be difficult. So you just give them about 10 minutes. They try to say it. The teacher is walking around, just helping with pronunciation, confirming meaning if there are any questions, and just helping them along and just listening carefully to everybody. All right. Step 6. Step 6, students are going to be paired up. They're going to say their monologue and not read it. Never read. So they can check their script as many times as they want, but they cannot read. That's it. And their partner is also going to be involved by listening carefully to them and asking them a question about their monologue. Okay, this is going to come into play later. Step 7, they're going to get a different partner and they're going to say it again, but they just need to try to check the script less. Okay, you don't force them. You don't know who in class needs to check more, who's capable of checking less. Students will get used to it, so they just need to give themselves a little longer to try to remember. Don't check too quickly. All right, most important though is that they are never reading. They're trying to remember and say it. Once again, the listening partner will ask a question. Step 8, they're going to get a different partner again. This part I like to just use the original partner. So the first partner they had, then a different partner, then back to the original partner who is getting some repetition now in listening since they've already heard this exact monologue. But it's the same topic, similar vocab, similar themes, so it's okay to just get new partners entirely all the time if you want to. And very important, now they do not hold their own script. They're going to give their script to their partner who is going to help them. So when they forget, they're going to give them prompts, reminders, even the whole sentence just to repeat. So now they're helping each other. Once again, they can ask a question. If you're tight on time, you can leave that part out because the partner is already very active in helping them. But there's never any harm in just adding in a section where they can ask a question and get some feedback. Okay, then step 9. Step 9 happens at home. So now students go home. First, they can revise. They can use ChatGPT and the methods you've taught them, and they can think about what questions was I asked in class today. So This is what people in the real world might ask them and what they need to know how to say, so they can make their monologue a little longer. They can start adding some information to it based on those questions that they got in class, and they can just bulk it up. They round it off. They round off this answer a bit more, and then they practice saying it without reading it again to themselves. And then they forget about it until it comes up again in class. This is the final step. So every class after that, you're going to start with monologues. You're going to, students are going to swap their scripts for whatever monologue they're practicing for the day and try to say one of those previous monologues that they have made. This is a way that we can add some spatial repetition into the class. So this totally depends on your schedule, your teaching schedule, how you want to space it out. For me, I see students twice a week, and the first day is making a monologue, a new monologue. So I have 2 opportunities every week to practice the previous monologue. So in week 2, I will of course practice the monologue from week 1 and the new one that was made in week 2. Week 3, we'll go back to 1 and 2, or even 2 and then the new one, or 3. Week 4, perhaps we're reaching back to monologue number 1 and number 2, or 1 and 3. You decide how to space it out, but this is how we get some repetition in the class, and students are really speaking a lot, and it's personal. And later on in the course, it's up to students to choose which one they would like to practice. Get them to identify which of the monologues do they struggle with the most. When they look over the topics, which one do they feel like they've really forgotten the most? And then they can choose which one they want to practice at the start of class. So at this point, it doesn't take very long, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes for students just to talk. You can also add questions again and to practice the previous week's monologues. All right, that's it. That's the whole 10-step sequence to using AI-assisted monologues in the classroom. And now we move on to skills trading. So if you would like to implement this concept into your own classroom, here are some more details on how to train students, how I recommend you train students, and just a few extra steps that are hiding behind this activity. So on day 1, this is what I recommend. If you're using this for the first time, you are going to do this with students step by step. So get everybody in class to open up ChatGPT, to be logged in, to be ready, while you have it on the screen in front, and you all enter the prompt at the same time. Translate what I type into natural spoken English and hit enter so everybody is ready. Then redirect their attention to explaining how to give a proper answer in class. We don't want very simple, very easy answers. We want them to start developing longer sentences to say, or more, not so much longer sentences, but more fleshed out ideas. Okay. If you've ever done a writing class, this is totally natural, very common. You would have seen this many times. But basically what I'm saying is support. We want support, as much support as possible. So you can do this type of thing. So if the topic to practice with is a self-introduction, you can just show students, if this is my answer in class, I am a South African. Is this okay? Is this a good answer? There's nothing wrong with the grammar, but no, it's not a good answer. So students can discuss why, and it's too short. Okay, there's no support. What about this? I am a South African living and working in Japan. A lot of students will now say, yes, that's a good answer. But again, no, it's not. It's a perfect sentence, but it's not what we're looking for in class. Every time they give an answer, they must have at least 2 sentences. They need more information, like this. I am a South African living and working in Japan. More detail. I've been teaching at Kansai Gaidai for 2 years, and I'm still enjoying learning new things about Japan while exploring Hirakata. All right, that's what we're looking for, something longer. Even with lower levels, this is okay, because when you're using the AI-assisted monologues, you can push them beyond their level. It's okay if it's just a little difficult, okay? So this is what we're looking for. For any level, we want them to at least give 2 sentences. They must always add detail to everything that they say. Then you bring them back to their ChatGPT, which they're all ready to use, and they need to write down a very short self-introduction of at least 2 full sentences, like you've just demonstrated. So they're going to write that in their native language. In this case here, I have Japanese. I just reversed what I said, so this is what it will look like. And it tells me I'm originally from South Africa and I live and work in Japan. I've been teaching at Kansai Gaidai for 2 years now, and I still enjoy learning new things about Japan while exploring Hirakata. All right, so they should all have that introduction. Then you can demonstrate another prompt that they can use that is going to be useful when they make monologues in future. So even though their result right now is probably quite easy to say, it's not too difficult to understand, everyone together can type in make it one level easier. Okay, then you'll see it changes my answer to I'm from South Africa, took away the originally, and live and work in Japan. I've been teaching at Kansai Gaidai for 2 years and I still enjoy learning new things about Japan and exploring Hirakata. So it just simplifies it a bit. You'll also find sometimes if there's maybe a bit of a stiff technical answer, it's not so much that this prompt makes it like easy, like lower level. It quite often changes the language so it's more conversational. Okay, so this is a good prompt to know, and they can use this as many times as they want. You can keep simplifying. This is important because students should not struggle to memorize. The point here is not memorizing language that they don't know and they don't understand. It should be language that they understand. It's maybe not easy to remember and just say it without reading, which is fine. In time it becomes easy, but you do not want this to be purely an exercise in memorization and like trying to say words that they don't really get. They should modify it so that it's at a level when they read it, they can match up the L1, the L2, the words are understandable. Okay, excuse me. So get used to this prompt. You do not want them to have this stressful period of just remembering, like memorizing, like they're memorizing word lists or something. Okay, it should be natural. They must not be afraid to just make it easier. Not too easy. You can also go in the opposite direction, but not. The main point is do not get them to memorize things that they don't understand and like words that they cannot even pronounce at all, that they've never seen before. That's how we try to get it at their level. Okay, so that's a prompt you can teach them. Prompt number 3 that you can teach them as well after that to give them more options is this one. Give me a different way to say that. And actually you can even say, give me 3 different ways to say that, or whatever number you choose. And this is good because it'll give them like a different flavor. They can start to see which words do they prefer. They can learn a few more phrases and vocab. So you'll see it says, I'm originally from South Africa and now live and work in Japan. That's what the first answer I got. I've been teaching at Kansai Gaidai for 2 years and I still have fun discovering. So we have a new phrase there. So students can talk to you, they can decide which type of sentence would they like to choose. What do they want to practice? What do they want to use in their monologue? Okay, that's just a way for them to get more variation if they're looking for different words, different sentences. So that's just, we'll just keep it at those prompts. So now they have 3 prompts in total to use. And when they're doing this, you can at least initially just have these prompts on the board or somewhere while they're busy, just as a reminder. All right, and then very important, because if this turns into a reading exercise, it's not useful. You want them to challenge their brain and start to practice recall. This is not practicing reading, it's practicing recall. So simple concept to get them used to make sure they do that is eyes down, mouth closed. That's it. Okay, if you are looking down at anything or your notes, nothing is coming out of your mouth. You only speak when you look up at your partner. Okay, eyes down, mouth closed, eyes up, mouth open. That's it. Just get them used to this concept. Explain it simply like that. That's your new rule in class. All right, you really want to avoid reading anything. it must be a little difficult when they try to get that information out their brain. The more they do that over time, the more natural and easier it's going to become. That will build their fluency and understanding. Okay. And then after students now have got the concept, they say that to their partner. So they have their very short introduction of 2 sentences. Without reading it, they say to the partner, and the partner asks them a question. So they're getting to know each other, plus they have now actually done the whole procedure themselves. So they get the whole concept of monologues. And then you go even deeper by doing a full monologue with them, using these concepts for the day, but you break it down piece by piece. And this here you can actually do every week initially, and then slowly you let go more and more. So for example, so the topic now is the new semester, and you're going to give students 4 questions. And when they answer these 4 questions, it's going to lead to at least 8 sentences. That's what we need. 8 longer sentences, because you want them to have at least 2 sentences in each answer. So now you're going to guide them through the topic by doing 1 question at a time. So question 1, how do you feel today at the start of the new semester? And then they go to ChatGPT, they use the L1, they get their main idea, the support, so at least 2 sentences, and they write that down. Then gives them question 2. What did you do well as an English learner last semester? Same thing. They go to ChatGPT, translate, get their answer. So they're not writing these questions, they're just writing the answers. Question 3, what would you like to do better this semester? Again, get their answer, write it down. Question 4, what other goals do you have not related to English? Again, they get the sentences translated and they write that down. So this is a well-rounded answer. When you combine all of their answers, it's going to give them 1 paragraph, which is going to be their monologue talking about the new semester. You can change the topic, you can do this however you want, but I just recommend 4 guiding questions, and all the answers together are going to be a good single answer to talk about this topic. So now they have their first monologue, you've guided them through it. When they combine all of those questions, the answers to the questions, you can now practice the monologue sequence with them, as you saw in the sequence that I showed you, those 10 steps. All right, so just keep that in mind. Excuse me. In week 1, 1 question at a time, just to help put together the whole monologue. So 1 question, answer, 1 question, answer, for a total of at least 4 questions from week 2. So for me, this is like lesson 3 or 4. They do the full monologue. You don't take them through question, but you give them guided questions. So it sounds the same, these guiding questions, but it's not. You give them the topic, you give them a few questions which help them with ideas of what they could talk about, what they can think about to speak about this topic, but they are choosing which questions they want to answer. So you're not taking them through 1 at a time anymore. It's totally up to them. They don't even have to answer your exact questions. Okay, so just give them a guide, and then from week 3 later on, so for me this is more towards lesson 6 or so, you just give them the topic and they're free. They just talk. You're not giving them guiding questions anymore. You want to get to the point where students really are just saying what they would say. You don't want to interfere too much. It's their ideas. They have a lot of information in here. They're humans. They have lots of information. They have lots of things to talk about. They all have a different life experience. So you don't want too much guidance. You want to let them go. And this also means that later in the semester, it's a good idea to start getting them to produce the topics together as a class. Get them to come up with the topics that are important to them, that they would like to talk about, and then start using topics that are generated by the students. Okay, what if you would like to implement this concept, but you are in a classroom environment where you have no technology to use, or it's like a low-tech environment? What can you do? As I said, I have done this before, so I'm just gonna quickly go through this section so it doesn't take too long, but I'm sure you'll get the idea. So first of all, let's say it's low tech. So you don't have internet, you don't have AI, but maybe students do have devices, even if they're not connected to the internet. Or it could be a case where they do have the internet, but maybe you're not allowed to use AI, something like that. Okay, so one thing you can do, use translation apps. Okay, they're not perfect, but if a student puts what they want to say through a translation app, it's still going to be much, much faster just for you to check and interpret what they're trying to say and give them a more natural answer. Okay, so you can still, don't be afraid of those. I really recommend you use DeepL instead of something like Google Translate. It's going to give you a more natural translation. DeepL does need an internet connection though, or you can use Papago or Google Translate. For Asian languages, I would put it in that order. Papago is better than Google Translate, but I do think Google Translate has improved. And the advantage of these are Papago and Google Translate both have offline modes. So just get students to download the language packs when they are connected to the internet outside of the classroom, and then you can use those apps inside of the class, and it'll be much quicker for you to check their monologues. All right, so if you have no internet and no devices at all, you're going to have to use templates, especially for lower levels. Okay, so a template could be like this. I'm not going to read it all out, but this is my answer to the new semester. How do I feel? Or just an example answer. So in this case, you would actually use this in a lesson, preferably use it for other exercises, for listening, dictation, whatever you'd like. And then this will be the example. And then students will follow that example by making their own. And you just take sections out like this. So it's the same template that they've just seen, they've used in a few activities, but now they're just filling in their information in the gaps. You can also add something like this, like prompts to guide them. So I feel, and then a positive feeling, but then a negative feeling about the new semester because reason, all right, to give them even more guidance. All right, so that's one thing you can do. If you just start from scratch, no technology, students are just writing, your class is going to turn into mostly a writing class. So at least try to use templates to help them along. Then you can still use this concept. All right. Then also don't forget, even though maybe in the classroom you do not have technology, there's a good chance that internet and devices are available at home. So if that's the case, just go hybrid. Okay, so one way to do this is to teach students how to do this online and set monologues as homework. So they create these monologues and then they bring them to class. They bring their scripts and they practice saying them and helping each other in class. All right, that's another option that you can use, and I'm sure you can think of some creative ways, even just to use this for homework in your normal class, even if it has technology. Perhaps somebody wants to try this. All right, then just in closing, I'm just going to give you a quick reminder that the priority here is that we want it to be accurate. Okay, totally accurate. They must be confident that whatever they say is correct, and other students must know that at least they're listening to something that is correct. Also, it should be personal. We want it in the context, situational context, the situation being the student's life, something that they really know how to say, want to know how to say. That also makes it more interesting for them. It's actually easier to remember because they know it's related to exactly how they would talk. We also want it to be fast. Priority here is on speaking, practicing pronunciation, and building up what they want to say. All right. It doesn't work if you take too long just to sit and write the whole class. You know, if students are taking like 30 minutes or an hour just to write their answer, something's wrong. They're not doing the process correctly. And finally, again, it's linked to the same concept, fluency. It's all about fluency. We want them to be practicing speaking as much as possible. Using this method, you'll find that everyone in class is speaking a lot, way more than usual in a normal class where some people speak more than others. Everyone's speaking the same amount. Everyone has something coming out of their mouth. It's just a lot of speaking, and everyone's practicing fluency. I guess a quick final tip there is you can also get them to record themselves and listen to how they're doing. And you can also listen to those recordings. It helps you to pinpoint how every student is doing. All right, and then finally, just your final tip. You can accelerate results by adding a bit more SRS to your course. Some of you will recognize this logo, this icon. It's Anki. The app is called Anki. So you can take these monologues sentence by sentence and get students to put them into an SRS system like Anki, which they can use just for a few minutes every day. Because when they do their monologues, they're not going to struggle with every sentence. Some sentences and words are going to be more difficult than others. So by using Anki, naturally those more difficult ones are going to start revealing themselves and they'll get more repetition in practicing those. And then when they actually say the monologue in class, it'll become easier to put it all together. So that's one way to accelerate. Plus, Anki has the advantage of, like, if you want to incorporate that into your homework assignments for students, they can export PDFs, like data sheets showing their Anki results and how frequently they've been covering it and if they're keeping up with what they're supposed to do. You can also, instead of Anki, use something like the goal list method or even a Lightner box, just normal flashcards. There's many ways to do it, but that's just a final tip. If you want an extra layer to really get them practicing and get more repetition, Anki is a good thing to play around with. All right, that's it. That's the presentation today. I hope something in there was useful for you. If anyone would like to contact me, my email addresses are on the screen. The Gmail one and the more professional work one. Depends on what time of the year it is, which one I check and respond to faster. But feel free to send me an email at these addresses. And that's it. Good luck, everybody. I hope you have a good time in your respective classes.